Hello, me again. If you watched the last one, it's me again. Euro is this video based on Ambrose Evans Pritchard's latest article in The Telegraph entitled Germany is the ultimate victim of EMU, from which we read. They gave up the Deutschmark, reluctantly under French and Italian pressure, as the price for acquiescence in reunification. Have you caught up yet? New presentation. Important opening sentence. It was important for Germany to do the reunification thing with Eastern Germany. In a way, Western Europe had a kind of a veto on that Germany wouldn't want to bully out of the way. Obviously they could, but with their past they didn't want to do the bullying for the reunification, so they negotiated the reunification, and one of the points in the reunification negotiation was that, well, come and join the euro and you're nice new big country and the rest of us will make one great lovely euro thing. The price that had to be paid for the reunification. They entered EMU, European Monetary Union, at an overvalued rate after the reunification bubble, leaving them in a semi-slump for half a decade. They slowly clawed back competitiveness the hard way by squeezing wages and driving up productivity. Germany. Da-dun-da-dun. It is entirely understandable that they, the German people, now think Club Med, the pigs, can and should do the same. The next line is good. They are profoundly wrong, of course, and then he gets a bit didn't want to dwell on it too much, so kind of went blah, 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 through the reasons why Club Med, the pigs, cannot do as Germany did. Just believe me, they can't. Things have changed, and they're different people. Later. Merkel, she is entirely right in one sense to continue ruling out Eurobonds as unthinkable under the current structures and a violation of the German constitution, but she can get around that. But that is not really an answer to the historical challenge that she now faces in late 2011, as in now. Germany cannot unwind the clock. It did take the fateful step of joining monetary union, and from that awful error follows a string of strategic imperatives, but really the important thing is they made the mistake by joining because they wanted the reunification, and cause and effect gets us to the end of 2011 December, now with huge bucket loads of problems. As the wise professors warned at the time, pre-EMU, would lead to ineluctably to full fiscal union, because an orphan currency would not endure without an EU treasury. Not totally sure, but it doesn't matter. And government to back it up. But it would be a fiscal union accountable to nobody, because no European democracy exists or can exist. In other words, the countries of Europe are not going to have a Washington that they can look to as where they elect the leaders to do the stuff for them. It'll never happen. It can't happen. Italy will not the countries are countries, and they just will not go along with that, so it could never happen. This, later again, this is what monetary union always meant and means now, though the trick being played on European citizens was fudged by dishonest treaties themselves dishonestly ratified. Just getting to where they are now, they had this idea from Delors and Co Limited that they would get to more unified Europe, and each of these treaties was moving there, but it was just moving there on paper. It wasn't bringing the hearts and minds of the European people along with them. But they thought when push came to shove, which is now the end of 2011 that the European unelected or elected politicians would be able to get the crisis and shake the last bit through, with basically always leaving the hearts and the minds of people completely out of this, because they couldn't ever be convinced that what the politicians were doing was the right thing. But they thought the problem, the great breakup, would make it possible for them to push through the last bits over, like they always have, over the heads of the people. And this is it now. And that is the choice. All else is can kicking, as in going to fiscal union, but I'll come on to hopefully show how that's can kicking in its own way. Denial, obfuscation, muddle and self-delusion, as is now becoming obvious. The failure to resolve the matter one way or the other is becoming a danger to the global financial system. It threatens to uncork a global depression. Germany must at last decide. Now, I'll throw in quickly, while I remember, that you think about these, I think about this, and it becomes a pressure cooker in your head, or like doing a video game that you can't find the way out. I thought a referendum would be the way out, but apparently Germany can't have referenda. So anybody that knows can comment. I can't be sure of that, but I've heard they can't do it, so it's going to be up to the politicians, and that just corks up that exit. And again, my head's exploding with this. It's a horrible choice. My sympathies go out to the German people who were never given a vote on this ensnarement and infeudation of their peaceful country, and who were egregiously deceived by their own leaders, and who cannot now begin to understand why they suddenly are the target of such furious and venomous global criticism. Everyone's, going, Germany, either they want to dominate Europe because they're saying that we want to look at the books before, etc., etc. You know that, I've touched on it so many times. Or saying that they want to keep the euro because if they went to the Deutschmark again, the Deutschmark would become at such a high rate that their export industry would be broken, so they're trying to stay in the euro so they can dominate the world through exports and dominate Europe and crap like that. The Germans too are victims of this ruinous project, the greatest victims of all. Their elites have led them into a diplomatic and economic Stalingrad. Now, if you know your history, you can just about understand why he said Stalingrad, but just let's say a watershed, or a real and genuine moment of decision. But it seems that if the people can't make the decision, it's down to Merkel, and it's looking like Merkel isn't going to make the decision. She's not going to push forward with fiscal union. She's going to pretend to push forward with fiscal union. Now, one thing that really annoyed me this week was Sarkozy, who made a speech, I think it was Monday, saying that there cannot be from here on in any defaults by members of the Eurozone group. Absolutely head-shakingly mindless thing to say. So the politicians are going to go to this next conference on December the 9th, and they are going to pretend to push forward with a fiscal union of the 17 or the 27 or something. But that, as I described to the German view, I can't remember, writes the nice posts on OTP. In the comments to his last German's perspective article, it really is talking about pretending to go to a fiscal union is like being inside a burning building and negotiating a new fire insurance contract. It's such a phantasmagorically wondrous, harebrained nonsense that I'm fantastically shocked that the market has gone along with it. That the market, I've read article after article after article saying they're going to get it right this time. They're going to go to full fiscal union, and whew, everything's over, everything's fine. Everything is so far from fine, it's just ridiculous. And talking about pretending to talk about going to a fiscal union, which would take years, I'm sure they'll be able to push something through with their political manipulations to get something signed to say that we've taken the first step and then the next step is established and we're going to do this, this and this. But as this article by Evans Pritchard notes, that goes absolutely nowhere. Nowhere at all. And it certainly goes nowhere to put out the fire that they had the last 10 meetings about to put out. They had 10 meetings, the last 10, to have meetings about how to put the fire out, and have now decided that it seems that they can't put the fire out, so they're going to sit there in the middle of the fire and discuss something, some contractual arrangements about what happens when the house burns down. They've given up, basically. I'll just tell you that I've read so much over the last few weeks from so many different angles about the Eurozone. I've told you about the positive side is it'll get so bad that they'll think of something. That is the prevalent mode from the Euro positives. They'll think of something because it'll get so bad. But from the negative side, they're actually trying to think what will happen when it does finally break, and can you have a north-south divide, etc., etc. What will happen with the euro contracts when other countries go to back to their old currencies? I'll just tell you where I've got to of my workings out from what I've been learning. The chance of a north-south divide will probably be floated, maybe tried, but is unworkable in itself. There is one choice, which is a complete breakup, and absolutely everyone goes back to their old currencies. There might be two countries that stay together, but it won't be a major country like Germany or France. Basically, everyone has to go back to their own currencies. If for no other reason that the contractual debts taken out in euro denominations are unsort-outable. Okay, so what I think might happen, which is nobody else has even said it, so I can only think that it's stupid, that each country in the Eurozone goes back to its own currency because the main currency is unworkable. So what to do with the denominated debts? I think the trick might be something along the lines of each country, they decide, have a meeting that when they do the split up, each country decides on the official rate of conversion for the new currency to the old euro. Let's say everyone decides it's 1-to-1, and always will be. All euro denominated contracts always will be paid 1-to-1 in the new currency, totally independent of the fluctuation in the future of the exchange rate of that new currency. Do you see the idea? So as you can imagine, all the new currencies will inflate, and all the old euro debts will be paid off 1-to-1 in the new currency. Now, that's just obviously private debts, mortgages get paid off, government liabilities, the bonds get paid off, and they have that way a bit of a restart. So any comments that you've got on how, well, I'm sure you won't have comments about how they will keep the euro together, because I just don't think you will, because I've read so many and the experts just don't have a clue. Now, just 3 months ago, it was about 80, oh, it'll be all right, to 20, oh, there really is trouble. Of the euro the people that hadn't before then decided that there was going to be a breakup. But just in the last 3 months, there's just about nobody now that can come up, well, there is nobody that I've read over this week that has put forward a way of keeping the euro currency together. But maybe you have read something, and if you have, I'd be extremely interested to read it. But it looks doomed. Chibble, bye.